It's a cold Tuesday evening in March, early 1930s. A
Fictional?
young woman is entering the Topkeller, Berlin's infamous lesbian bar in Schöneberg. She is sporting a bright red lipstick and a Bubikopf, a trending hairstyle for young emancipated women at the time. The place is run down, and old paper garlands are hanging from the ceiling. There is no other decoration, but that doesn't matter to the young woman. She squeezes past some men smoking cigarettes in the entryway and tries to ignore their looks. She hangs her coat on a hook on the wall and looks around, greeting the bartender and a few other people with a nod. Finally, at the end of the bar, she sees her girlfriend of many years, hurries over to her, and they greet with a smooch on the cheek and a bright smile. They were supposed to meet an hour ago.
Sorry, some customer took too long and I couldn't close the shop.
Her girlfriend doesn't care. She just shakes her head, smiles at her and lights another cigarette. The show hasn't started yet, so it makes no difference. The young woman is excited. Today will be a performance of the infamous Claire Waldorf, a well-known lesbian chansonnier and cabaretist of that time, and by far her favorite singer. The women are standing at the bar, arm in arm, laughing and joking with some of their friends. When suddenly the light goes on and someone screams,
Raid! Come here! This was an unusual situation for queer people in the 1930s Germany. The time was marked by a climate of fear due to raids and denunciations led by the Nazi regime. The vast queer life of the Weimar Republic was coming to an end. The regime's approach to homosexuality was characterized by a fundamental hostility towards it as deviant behavior in social and sexual terms, challenging Nazi sexual morality. While there was no explicit Nazi ideology on homosexuality, their policy towards homosexual men and women was graduated and differentiated. One of the most urgent measures after the Nazi takeover was the destruction of the public and organized homosexual movement. The Institute for Sexual Science and the League for Human Rights were dissolved or destroyed, and smaller associations were deprived of their foundation. This action was taken because emancipatory demands and infrastructure contradicted Nazi sexual morals. The situation led many homosexual people to retreat into private life, masking their identity and living double lives. For lesbian women, their status as women was decisive for their living conditions, as Nazi ideology stipulated the principle of motherhood and marriage with strictly separate spheres of life for men and women. After 1933, many of the estimated 1.4 million lesbian women married to escape social pressure. The unmarried ones, who were forced into gainful employment, were often pushed out of their jobs. The criminalization and bringing into line of women's organizations that were supposedly lesbian infiltrated deprived the Nazis of further ground for criminalizing lesbian women. The gender-specific approach to homosexuality was based on different judgments of male and female sexuality and can be attributed to the unequal status of the sexes. A discussion about criminalizing female homosexuality around 1944 led to a decision by the Criminal Law Commission of the Ministry of Justice against extending paragraph 175 against homosexuality to women. There were various positions among Nazis regarding lesbians. Hardliners advocated criminalization on the grounds of racial degeneration and the threatening character of homosexuality. Heinrich Himmler repeatedly denounced the masculinization of women and feared that the lack of female charms in a male state could lead to homosexuality. He also worried about camouflage marriages that would bring hereditarily inferior children into the world.
The young woman is sitting on the bunk bed, head full of thoughts. The only thing she has now is the uniform on her body, a striped skirt and a jacket. She wasn't allowed to take anything else. Not even the bunk bed is her own. She has to share it with another woman. How are they supposed to fit in there? Ravensbrück. She only heard the name from the stories and rumors. She'd never expect to end up here herself. How did it happen? Maybe if she hadn't been at the bar all those years ago, she wouldn't be in some register they kept of women like her. She looks down at her chest. There it is. The red triangle. Political prisoner number 5121. The young woman doesn't understand, but it's not for her to understand. It's not important anymore. What matters now is to survive and stay under the radar. Women like her are frowned upon, not only by the SS, but other prisoners as well. And what happened to her girlfriend? She's worried sick, but she has to find out somehow. She hopes her partner had more luck than the young woman herself. She has to go now. Roll call. Hopefully she escapes death's claws for just one more day.
Although specific details about the arrests of lesbian women during the Nazi era are scarce, the fact that the Nazi Party's Office of Racial Policy collected and registered their names confirms that they were subject to persecution. While men deemed homosexual were arrested under paragraph 175, which criminalized homosexual behaviors, there was no specific detention category for women persecuted as lesbians. However, paragraph 183 of public indecency was often used as an excuse to arrest and persecute non-conforming women, among those lesbians. Men imprisoned under paragraph 175 were marked with a pink triangle. In contrast, lesbians in concentration camps were typically identified with a black triangle as social prisoners or a red triangle as political prisoners. These markings were not permanent and could change during their time in the camp. But not all queeper who came to the attention of the Gestapo were automatically arrested. Social capital, including gender-conforming behavior, contributed to tolerance and cover. There is far more information available about the men convicted for homosexuality than about sexually non-conforming women. Those deemed as homosexual in Nazi concentration camps faced extreme persecution and were treated as one of the lowest groups, alongside Jewish people. They were subjected to the worst labor assignments, punishments, and tortures, and were frequently rejected by fellow prisoners. The Nazi regime's cruelty towards them extended to coercive medical procedures. Starting in 1939, men could be released from prison or concentration camps if they consented to castration, a choice made under severe duress. Additionally, homosexual prisoners were often used as subjects in inhumane medical experiments, including hormone injections and testing of experimental vaccines. The brutality of their treatment is reflected in the staggeringly high mortality rate among homosexual prisoners, with an estimated 55% dying in the camps, a figure significantly above the average for other groups of prisoners. At least 100,000 gay men were at some point in the Nazi penal system. 5,000 to 10,000 were sent to concentration camps because of their alleged homosexuality. In the Sachsenhausen concentration camp, almost all gay men were murdered by 1942. There aren't that many details available about the sexually non-conforming women. Due to the different, less institutionalized character of their persecution, much information is lost or hidden. There is still research to be done on the topic, and for that, one has to read between the lines.
Wenn irgendwer, wenn ihm was nicht behagt, ganz offen und ehrlich die Meinung mir sagt, ich meine so richtig und nicht hintenrum, denn ist nicht so wichtig.
This is where the story of the young woman stops. Unfortunately, her fate remains unknown. After the war, all traces of her were gone. Her partner, who survived the war, tried to look for her after 1945. Unsuccessfully.
Many stories of lesbian women remain unfinished, and their protagonists remain unknown. After the war, persecution under paragraph 175 continued, as it remained in force in the laws of both German states. Moreover, there was no compensation for those imprisoned or deported to concentration camps due to their homosexuality. Compensation was only available to those persecuted for political reasons or under the Nuremberg race laws. Some homosexual men tried to claim political prisoner status, but even when they succeeded, their recognition as victims of fascism was denied. In the decades following World War II, attitudes toward homosexuality gradually shifted, leading to the diffusing of paragraph 175 in East Germany in 1968 and West Germany in 1969. However, it wasn't until the 1980s that the forgotten groups of victims, including homosexuals persecuted by the Nazis, began to receive more public attention. During this time spent in concentration camps was recognized as a period of downtime for pension insurance purposes, although time spent in jail was still not acknowledged. In 1988, the extension of the hardship provisions of the Compensation Act resulted in a total of 8 people receiving compensation. It wasn't until July 23, 2002, that the German Bundestag finally repealed the judgments made during the Nazi era under Section 175. In May 2008, a memorial to the homosexuals persecuted under National Socialism was erected in Berlin, serving as a powerful reminder of the struggles and sacrifices endured by the LGBTQ+ community during that dark period of history. Over the past decade, there has been an intense debate regarding a memorial plaque at the Ravensbrück camp, which was initially intended to specifically honor gay men. After years of discussion, a memorial ball was finally installed in 2022 to honor lesbian women at Ravensbrück. The inscription reads, "In memory of all lesbian women and girls in Ravensbrück and Uckermark women's concentration camps. You were persecuted, imprisoned, and even murdered. You are not forgotten."
This podcast episode was created during the summer school Remembrance Podcasts, Persecution of Queer People under National Socialism, organized by Deutsche Gesellschaft e.V. and GFPS-Polska. The fictional part of this episode was heavily inspired by the stories of Elli Smula and her partner Margarete Rosenberg, who were most likely killed in the concentration camp Ravensbrück. The 2 women who were imprisoned as political prisoners with red triangle marks were additionally labeled as lesbians in the SS documents. If you would like to learn more about the persecution of lesbians during the National Socialism, we encourage you to listen to the podcast episode Continuity of Silencing: Lesbian Victims and Their Enduring Struggle. My name is Freddie.
And my name is Aleksandra.
And we thank you for listening.
This podcast episode was recorded as part of the summer school Remembrance Podcasts, Persecution of Queer People under National Socialism, organized by Deutsche Gesellschaft e.V. and GFPS-Polska.
The project is funded by the EVZ Foundation, and the Federal Foreign Office is part of the program Young People Remember.